Hi, and welcome to Gigging Out, the podcast about the gig economy, staffing, and flexible work. Today's episode is part of a special series recorded at the Staffing World Conference. I chat with David Lee, a seasoned SaaS entrepreneur and CEO of Praos Health. David shares how Praos is simplifying the tedious parts of healthcare staffing through automation. We also dive into some common tech adoption mistakes, why mobile solutions matter, and the big opportunities still waiting to be explored in the healthcare staffing space. David shares the lessons he's learned with decades of experience in scaling technology solutions. Enjoy. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Dana. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. So tell me a little bit about your background and what you do at Praos.
Sure. So I'll go backwards first.
Yeah, please.
CEO
Take
Praos.
me way back.
I'll take you all over the place here. CEO Praos. My background is kind of interesting. I got into the HR technology space a while back. I was the first employee of what became a very large VMS. We didn't even know what a VMS was back in those days. Had to make up the term, or staffing industry analyst did. That VMS Workforce Logic grew and grew. It had an exit, and the team that I was with went off to build more HR technology. So first we built an HRMS, kind of like a Workday for small market.
Yeah.
And then from there, we built something that was an onboarding system called WorkTab.
Oh, cool.
And that also had a nice exit. And I got recruited into Praos a little over a year ago, and I've had just an incredible time with it.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me about Praos. What are you doing?
Sometimes when you're a leader of a technology company, honestly, you're a solution, sometimes in search of a real problem.
Yeah.
It's not always there.
I get it. Yep.
We have had so many different opportunities of where we're going, but where we stick to our knitting and really kind of our DNA is we are a enterprise platform that's built particularly for healthcare staffing companies. Travel nursing, per diem nursing, allied health, and now we've moved into locums as well.
Oh, awesome.
So essentially what I tell people with Praos is the system was built 6-7 years ago. It's very mature. And we go to staffing companies that don't have a VMS, MSP, and we say, really everything today is about speed to submission to get revenue.
Yep.
So what Praos does is we, I think, are the only game in town that provides an enterprise white label solution that gives you a job board, a private marketplace, a custom mobile app, and what we call a briefcase, which is really all the guts of the clinicians and having them verified so you can go ahead and pass them forward and submit.
Oh, awesome. So why healthcare staffing specifically? There's lots of different sub-verticals within staffing. Why did you feel like it really needed a technology solution?
Fantastic question. And we'll certainly get beyond that. But in the case of Praos, it was built by a brilliant person by the name of Rohini Bhushaton years ago. Her husband, who was the president of Baylor Scott and White, she had a long-time technology background in big companies. And he'd come home and say, the hardest job I have as CEO of Baylor Scott and White is to find nurses and retain nurses.
Yeah.
So she saw that problem, had the disposal of a huge healthcare system so she could focus group it.
Oh, that's
and built Praos, which was essentially a application and platform that nurses, clinicians could get together with hospitals. Did quite well. She went out to get a little bit larger, and the guy that bought that company, who's essentially my boss, Aaron Grossman, had real big success in the non-healthcare area, right? Company called Able, which had a big exit to Bullhorn.
Yep.
And he said, this is exactly the platform I want. It's already in healthcare staffing. So let's start there and then work our way forward.
Oh, very cool. So what are some of the, kind of common inefficiencies that healthcare staffing firms are experiencing that Praos solves for?
Shouldn't say this out loud, but healthcare staffing is kind of a laggard in the industry in terms of technology.
Yeah.
And I think really what happened is healthcare staffing firms had grown their business and been very successful really by just doing all the things you typically do. Mixers, relationships, email, et cetera. And as it started to get a little bit more competitive, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, staffing industry analysts said, you have to have a technology platform to survive.
Yeah.
Then COVID came, everybody was rolling in cash, and they were able to kind of push that back. But really, there's a kind of a big six that have that VMS, MSP, and everybody else has to take the secondary jobs. What we're doing is we're trying to just level the playing field for those healthcare staffing firms. We always say, are you a tech company or are you a staffing company?
Yeah.
Most everybody will say, I'm a recruiting staffing company.
Yeah.
We're purely a tech company that gives you all those things you need to go be successful and look like the billion-dollar companies you're competing with.
Yeah.
So that's really it.
That's great. I'm curious. I love that question that you ask because I think so. They have to become a platform. They have to digitize their business. Do they build it or do they buy it? How do you guide people through those decisions on finding a partner like you versus building something internally?
Really we take a look at is what is the cash outlay, but one of the big misnomers, and I'll tie this to a story, is if you go build something, you assume, okay, it's done.
Oh,
no, you have to continue to maintain, be competitive, grow, and invest more. So the VMS workforce logic we built was inside a big staffing company called Nelson Staffing. And the guy that built it and ran it, Gary Nelson, he's like a father to me, if he's out there. We'd always say, so when we get this last version done for Google, which is one of our early clients, then we're done. We can just freeze the software. No, dude, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
you are continually investing and investing. So I think when we look at most every staffing company, they're buying some solutions like an Everett. They've already got a portfolio. When it comes to what we do, you ask them, do you really want to invest? Is that really kind of what you do or not? And I think for us, we've taken a real novel approach with the vendors and suppliers and everybody we have as an ecosystem. We've said, look, we know that we're going to help you grow your revenue. We have metrics and analytics that we can go prove it. And if we don't grow more than our subscription costs the first year, we'll give you your money back.
Wow, that's super cool.
We haven't yet not paid off the subscription the first couple months with our clients.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's a risk we can take.
That's so cool. I love that. That's a super unique pricing model, I guess, or pricing guarantee. Are there other things, like any features that have been particularly exciting for your client base that you've been surprised by, or things that they've really enjoyed?
Well, I have to tell you, first off, I am new to the healthcare industry, healthcare staffing industry. I had staffing and HR. So I'm learning and drinking from a fire hose every day.
I can imagine.
And every day I realize I didn't know that I should. I'd say at the base level we see, which isn't a surprise to your question, Dana, is almost everybody is using these things these days.
Yeah.
Mobile phone.
Uh-huh.
And really anybody in healthcare, doctors, nurses, allied health folks, they're using it because between shifts and so forth, they don't get in a laptop. Like my daughters that call me an OG that goes to their laptop. They want to be able to do everything they can mobile.
Yeah.
That's part of why the partnership with Every is so great, because what do people want to do? Get a job. They also want to process their time cards, see what they're going to get paid, and never have to leave their phone. So I think as we continue to build out, we're an enterprise platform, but really we're also a mobile platform, not an app.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, was all about where do you see the shift in mobile going for healthcare staffing? I think you nailed it, right?
I think that, but I also think I tell people is that really mobile should become more of a destination. So if you put yourself in the person that we really focus on, I would say there's a lot of systems out there that focus on the recruiter.
Yeah.
We focus on the clinician, the nurse, the doctor, et cetera. And in their world, what I think they see is they want to be able to touch something very easily, but they'd like a destination. What I don't see in the space is kind of a communities and groups and LinkedIn where we can have someone that says, I can just come to Praos and see everything. I can do time cards. I can update my briefcase. I can submit for a job. And oh, by the way, what's going on in news or in the community? That's my inner circle. So that's kind of one of our ultimate destinations.
That's super cool. I love hearing that because the communities seem really fractured, and then a lot of times they're super negative. Like you can go to Reddit and find a lot of threads about issues with travel nursing and things like that, but there aren't a lot. It doesn't seem that I can find anyway, a lot of communities that kind of uplift, the clinicians
and I think really it's a unique environment for someone that will get on the road and essentially be a nomad. One of the folks we really have, Atlas staffing out of Omaha, we say for them, they're making an adventure for all their people. Well, really, if you think about it, how many of us pack up and go travel for 13 weeks, live somewhere different, live out of a mobile home, et cetera, and go provide great healthcare and nursing? So I think we have to be cognizant of what they're looking for in their world and how they want to work.
Yeah. You talk about being clinician focused, they're not buying your product, right? You're selling to staffing firms. How do you make that a thing that you're committed to and you deliver on?
I think it's kind of a dual-edged sword, but the reality is while we're selling right now primarily just to healthcare staffing companies, they know their clinicians well and they'll let you know. They'll let you know what works, what doesn't work, what people are using. And also, frankly, to get back to the old capitalism, the more people they place, the more we know it works. So
Yep.
that's kind of our way of listening. As we grow and expand, we intend to have more sort of focus groups of just straight healthcare clinicians that really know that world and listen to them.
That's
But
awesome.
our clients market test our new products with them or our new releases. So to agree, we're just one step removed.
Yeah, I love it. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship because you have such a strong background there. What do you think is one trait that separates successful entrepreneurs from less successful entrepreneurs?
There's a lot of things that have to do with sort of vision and so forth. But for me, I've learned this before, it's fortitude. There are going to be tough times. And when you've been through it a few times and you go through those rocky patches, knowing that you have something, you're not going to give up.
Yeah.
It's not a magic formula, but when you go through this and you're with a core group of people, you're all just bonded together and you say that nothing's going to stop us.
Yeah. I love it. This might be similar, but any advice you wish you could go back and tell yourself, 20 years ago when you were starting off in HR SaaS? And
Tons. I'll tell you one that doesn't quite fit. Years ago, one of our first VMS clients called Veritas Software. They became Symantec. And the head of HR and the director, we went out to lunch. We're driving back, and I said, your company has grown 450% in the last year. I mean, you're like the hottest company around. Is there any company in the world you would even consider leaving and going somewhere else? And instantaneously, they said, Google. And none of us had heard of Google. We came back,
really?
and people were going, wow, this is cool. So yeah, I probably would have been an admin at Google and cashed out. I think what I've learned over time, though, to be clear about this, is really when you start to go do what you're doing is to find kind of, it sounds cliched, where the pain is. And often what you'll do is you'll go where you think you can go sell something,
yeah,
but you haven't identified where people really have pain.
yeah, so true. We're at Staffing World right now, and there's a lot of discussions around trends, kind of what's next in staffing. I'm curious, kind of specifically to healthcare staffing, where do you see still opportunities for innovation?
I think part of this gets back to the idea of saying for that clinician, making their life easier. One of the biggest challenges for them is credentialing.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing battle you have to do. And if you're a traveling nurse every 13 weeks or allied health professional every 13 weeks, it's arduous. So I think the more that we can do to make it easy, one of those impacts, I'll use the word, AI, I think will help solve that concept
Yeah.
that we're all talking about. I'm still trying to figure out where AI fits, but I definitely know if you can take what we call the friction out of the experience for the user and make it really easy, that's the trend that we're working towards.
Love it. Zooming out a little bit more, what do you think is like an exciting innovation? And maybe it is the AI word, I don't know, that you think will really be a game changer in staffing overall?
There's so many different areas where I see it going. I think one of the game changers is there's going to be more of what I'd call public marketplaces where people can go out and sort of shop their wares and go find them. Right now, the model is, it's kind of hard that you always have to go through one or two firms. I think you're going to find more staffing firms bandy together and really make it work. Not take a shot at a really successful company, but Vivian, I think, did the Indeed model. They got very close to staffing firms, and now they're moving away and going direct and kind of leaving those firms.
Yeah.
So I think what you're going to see over time is a place where there's a little bit more combined resources to get to that spot to make it easy for people to do work.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, because I've been hearing some chatter about that, like abandoning staffing firms, going direct. Talk a little bit about why that's happening. What should staffing firms kind of take from what's going on in the market? Like, how do they kind of future-proof themselves against it?
I'd like to say we're part of what helps future-proof that we're doing with Praos, because the reality is we're helping people go find clinicians in their own private marketplace without spending a lot of money. Good example of that. Vivian, who's very smart, but Indeed the same thing, got very close to staffing firms. They became reliant to get those clinicians. And then over time, they did what Indeed did. They raised their prices, and now they're going direct to facilities and bypassing staffing. What I see happening more and more right now is that staffing firms can find ways to sort of unite and do something together and take their own ownership of what they're doing. Part of what we see is kind of unique. With our clients, when we first start, we say, hey, look, here's this great public market, private marketplace and mobile app and briefcase, and you can go out and get candidates and move them quickly. The first thing we say is, you realize if you've been around a while, you've got a database of dormant people that are just sitting there.
Yeah.
That's your Vivian. Why spend money there? We've worked with alliances and partnerships where we can wake up that database and say, hey, did you know you're only about 3 things away from having a full briefcase and getting a new job? So
cool.
we're trying to tell those folks that have spent a lot of time and money to build a database.
Yeah.
Utilize your database. Don't go outside and spend money on it.
Yeah. So smart. Great advice. I'm curious, if you could wave a magic wand, change anything in staffing right now, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. First off, I got to figure out what it all is again.
Fair.
There's so much going on. I think really what it is we can help those staffing firms empower themselves, not be reliant on a VMS, an MSP, an outside public marketplace to do what they do well. They all recruit exceptionally well. That's why they're around. I think the technology piece is being reliant on somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's self-serving, I realize, Dana, but the more that we can help those firms sort of chart their own destiny and not have to worry about building technology to keep up, the better they'll be.
Love it. I like to end on the same question I've been asking everybody today. If you had to sum up the future of staffing in one word, what would it be?
Innovation. I think so.
I love it. Well, David, it was so great to meet you. I really appreciate you taking the time today, and enjoy the rest of your time here at Staffing World.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
This podcast was brought to you by Every. We work with gig companies, marketplaces, delivery businesses, and more to pay their workers fast. You can learn more at every.com.